I propose a few questions as you're listening to Gospel so that you might be able to notice the things that Mark throws in there as landmines for you to step on, and as they explode with meaning. So the first thing is there anything strange or unusual? Is there something odd that you go, huh? Why is that? Second question, are there any literary devices? Literary devices might include repetition or a mark and sandwich, which may seem like a picnic, but is a story surrounded by another story. So a story inside a story. Numbers are a favourite for Mark. So if there's any numbers, pay attention to them. They're there for a reason. And anything that speaks to you personally is the fourth one. So is there something that you go, huh, that is for me? Put a circle around it. Anything you've noticed?
Well, one thing strange and unusual is that it was a synagogue leader, considering how he'd been receiving other things.
He hasn't been having a good time with synagogue leaders until now, has he? Yes. So it's surprising that this synagogue leader would turn up and ask for a favour.
Not only ask for a favour, but fall at his feet and beg him to do something impossible.
Fall at his feet and beg him, not just for his son, the heir of his kingdom, but rather for his daughter. That's outrageous. In that time and place, never heard of. Just not going to happen. Put his reputation on the line for the sake of his daughter. Very surprising. What else do you see? Are you being shy because we have guests? Right, the artist is being very intentional about that, aren't they? There's only one person who sees her, and I'm not even sure that his eyes are focusing in the same direction, but everyone is looking everywhere except for where the woman is. Why do you think that is, Marge?
They're unsure.
Unsure? I might even suggest that they're looking everywhere but her because they've never looked at her. They have never looked at her. They have always overlooked her. Anything else you notice? Sorry? 12. 12 twice. Where else do you see 12 in the Bible? 12 disciples? 12 tribes, 12 loaves in a dozen, unless it's a baker's dozen. How about baskets left over? So Jesus is in the boat after the feeding of the 4,000 and the 5,000. He says, so, did you get it? And they went, get what? And he says, the feedings. How many baskets were left over after the 4,000? 7. And how many after the 5,000? 12. Now do you get it? No. In the Bible, numbers have a lot of meaning. It's part of their culture. But in this story, I want you to pay attention to 7, 12, and 3. 7's not in this story, but it is around it. 7 means perfect, 12 means the whole lot, and 3 means complete. So 3 disciples walking into the room give a complete testimony, and they describe the complete community of God. 12 is the whole lot. So it could be that this woman has been ignored her whole life, or it's as if she's been bleeding her whole life, or at least her whole adult life. The Mims book suggests that it could be anything from this many chapters that was happening to her. It could be endometriosis or a short cycle period or a whole host of other options. But that the little girl is here, ties her to the woman, at least. If nothing else, they're connected, but probably standing as a type for a whole lot of people. Anything else you notice? Isabel. Yes. Exactly. And what's the man's name? And the woman's name? She has no name. So she's a woman, she's got no name, and she's got no importance and no money. So, this woman has no status, but because Jesus calls her daughter, so there's two daughters in the story, she is imputed or given status that is even higher than the status of Jairus' daughter. The other thing Jairus has is a home to go to. This woman's probably staying in the shed outside someone's place. Yeah. Thank you. Do you know the penalty? Probably not cutthroat, probably death by stoning. Death by stoning for being in public when you're unclean. Yeah. Right. So the reason that the Syrophoenician woman was such a risk is because Jewish women kept close tabs on when their period was due, whereas the Gentiles can't guarantee that they know when they're going to be unclean. So yes, unclean and abhorrent, and so multiple layers of being pushed out. And yet she pushes in and she touches Jesus. Linda.
I was going to talk about touch, the importance of touch.
Yeah.
That she touches him, Jesus touches the girl, and the touch makes the unclean and the unnoticed noticed.
Right. So
She touches him and they turn around. Suddenly she's...
let's go back to the touch notice. Firstly, the touch unclean. Unclean means you can't connect with God. So when you're unclean, you've got to go and make yourself clean before you can get back and do God stuff. You know, like go to the temple or go to the synagogue or any of those things, or heal someone, or raise the dead. That's a God thing, surely. And so the woman touches Jesus and makes him unclean. Therefore, the very thing that he's on the way to do, he can't do because the woman has made him unclean and unacceptable to God, inaccessible to the power of God. Oh, that's a downer. Jairus was hanging so much on this. He put his whole reputation on the line. This is everything for Jairus. He's going to be cooling his heels with a lot going on in his head in just a moment. There's another thing about the touch. What was it you were saying?
the touch made her
Noticed. Right. So she touches Jesus, and he notices what? He doesn't. The power goes out of him. Like he's wearing a robe kind of like this, probably longer or more fluffy, and he notices the touch, not because he notices the feel of it. She didn't slap him upside the head, but because he notices the power go out. Now, there's a line in this story about healing. What happens when she went to the doctor? The usual. Unbelievable. Did she get healed? Did she go to the doctor to get healed? Yes. What happened instead of getting healed? She got poor. She may as well have been an American. So the whole idea of going to the doctor is you would get healed, and yet She goes out and meets this itinerant preacher in the middle of nowhere, and she gets healed, just like that. No medicine, no go off and do this thing, but she gets healed immediately. Now, this is not to besmirch the work of doctors, but rather to say something about the accessibility of Jesus and the power that she was able to access. This power is extraordinary. How did she get it? She reached out and took it. Did she ask? Did she do what Jairus did? As an esteemed leader, he threw himself on the ground in front of Jesus and begged him, please come and heal my daughter. She's not well. Instead, this woman sneaks up from behind, doesn't even face Jesus, sneaks up and steals the power and runs away. She is making dust by the time he turns around, so he has to move really quickly. It's like red light, green light. Stop! Who's moving? Who touched me? Who was it? The disciples are bemused, to say the least, confused and maybe a little bit annoyed. We've got an important schedule to meet here, Jesus. This is the chance for us to get on the good side of the people in power. If we heal this guy's daughter, the synagogue rulers around the town will hear us, hear about us, and they'll go, oh, they're the good guys. They just want to be the good guys. They just want to be on the right side of the story for a change. And here Jesus is messing it up. Oh, I knew he would do this. Every time there's a chance for us to get on the good side, Jesus messes it up. And here he is again, messing it up. Who touched me? You didn't touch me, you can't reach me from there. So why didn't he say, you touched me? Why does he not? Yes. Right. Right. He doesn't put her on the spot, but he does kind of. Edie? There's some ambiguity in the Greek, but yes, it's true. He didn't say who touched me, who touched my clothes. But he still doesn't say, woman, you touched me, why did you do that? Or how about some acknowledgement? How about giving glory to God for healing you? How about, some testimony? It's about him acknowledging her. Yep. So how do we know? Sorry? Yeah, but actually she got up. She came and said it was me, right? What did she say? She told him the whole truth. What is the truth? Isabel? Yeah, that's right. That's an allusion to another story, so thank you for bringing that up.
So something like this again. So she touches his clothes, she touches the hem, presumably goes down. There is a distance, a little distance between him and her. She doesn't actually touch him. And in the first instance, Jairus comes to Jesus and talks to him, but he doesn't actually touch either. I think that there is a message in here for us that we can receive this at a distance. What you need is the will to, you have to be determined to accept the goodness that Jesus God is giving to you, even though we are at a distance from it.
I love it when other people preach the sermon. I love it when other people preach for me. Thank you for preaching. That's perfect. That's exactly, like, save me saying it. Yeah. He does. It tells you about the nature of faith, doesn't it? We will get back to that in just a moment. Firstly, the touching the hem. Smith Wigglesworth and a bunch of other guys through history have started cottage industries by sending out handkerchiefs that they had touched because people got healed by it. So clothes are magic. Sorry? I said Smith Wigglesworth, but he's just one of a dozen that have been documented. People used to come and say, can you touch my hanky so I can take it back to my family and get them to heal? Yeah. So treat your clothes nicely. They could heal you.
You said, how do we know? And I was just thinking, well, Mark wasn't there, but she must have said all that stuff at the beginning.
Mark might have been there.
She had to have given the information.
Right.
To be at that point when she said.
Yeah. So in her pre-event interview, she gave her background and got the police check to make sure she was safe, right? No, she told the whole truth. So Jesus is on his way to this really critical meeting where he's going to save the reputation of this little band of faithful disciples by healing the daughter of the synagogue ruler. And this woman touches him. And he doesn't just go, who was it? But when she comes, he waits. And she tells the whole truth. Now, we get a little window in that, and Mark tells more of this story than other gospel writers because it matters. Her story matters to Jesus enough that Jesus stops everything. The whole procession comes to a screeching halt sideways. The woman tells the whole truth, and we get the whole truth. And I don't know if you've ever told a story of a life of trauma and disenfranchisement, but probably she got emotional, and probably it took a minute. And by probably, I mean definitely, and by a minute, I mean about 20 at least.
She's saying this
In public.
something that is terribly private.
Traumatizing.
Yes.
And also, woman stuff. I mean, we don't even talk about girl stuff today in public.
No, imagine what this.
Imagine saying menstruation out loud. Like, Paul called them filthy rags, the menstrual rags. So, like, likened it to sin. I mean, it's all that's unclean and everything that keeps us away from God. She was talking about in public, though, to be fair, she probably had her face to the ground and she was probably talking to his feet. She wasn't standing up proudly saying this to the whole crowd. Jesus just healed a woman, accidentally. Well, she touched him purposely, but he didn't know, and now she's telling why. That didn't add any clarity at all, I'm sorry. So, Jairus is standing there listening to this story, and he's saying, I am so grateful for Jesus because he is so kind and compassionate to this woman that I've never met. Right? No. Jairus, who's a leading guy in the area, is waiting for his daughter to get healed by Jesus, and this woman is prattling on and on and on about this life of exclusion that she's had. By the way, Nick, have you got the church keys in your pocket? No, I've got them. I have church keys. These mean that I can open the door and let you in. Marge also has some, so she can let you in if I'm not around. And in fact, so does most of Paddington. But these are the keys that Jairus had in his pocket. Jairus is the one who says who's in and who's out, who's allowed to come to God and who's not allowed to come to God. He's got the keys in his pocket, and guess who's been locked out all these years? The woman. She's tried everything she can. She's gone to all the doctors and spent all her money. In fact, she's now homeless or couch surfing because she spent all the money to try and get well so that she can be healed of this bleeding that probably comes with a lot of pain and definitely comes with a lot of exclusion. She's not allowed out in public. She's not allowed to go to church. She's not allowed to connect with God. She's not allowed to do anything. Women during their period were encouraged to go to the outhouse and stay there for the duration of their uncleanness so that they wouldn't infect the rest of the house with their uncleanness. So because she's unclean all the time, she's just not welcome. Not allowed anywhere. And here she is in public, taking a risk that she won't get caught and stoned, which she's stepping into when she comes and says, "This is my whole truth." So she tells her whole truth, and as she's winding up her story, or maybe it got wound up for her, one of the servants comes and whispers loudly in Jairus' ear, "Your daughter's dead." Sorry, that was loud. Because the servant's probably seen what's going on too, and seen how annoyed Jairus is, and seen how frustrated he is, jumping from foot to foot like a little boy needing to go to the toilet. Jairus just wants to get out of there to get his daughter healed. Jesus has just said to the woman, "Daughter, your faith has made you well." And Mark folds that on top of this next statement. What does Jesus say to Jairus? Jairus is told, "Why bother the teacher anymore?" Overhearing, unsurprisingly, what they said, Jesus told him, "Don't be afraid, just believe." Why is that folded over? The woman came afraid and was told that her faith, or having belief, has made her well. Jesus says to Jairus, "Do like her." Jairus is in the faith supermarket and he's trying to find, where do I find faith that heals my daughter? Now I've got to go to a different aisle because now she's dead, so I need a different level of faith. And Jesus says, "Go to the aisle, woman. You need the faith that she has. Don't be afraid, just believe, brackets, like her." Sorry, did I get this right? Jairus is the guy who's been teaching people all his life how to get to God. What to do if you want to get to God. What to do if you want to say the right words so that you can get to God. And Jesus is saying to Jairus, actually, you got nothing. Get that. It's like the ad that says, and plus you get steak knives. But wait, there's more. There's not more. There's nothing more than the faith that this woman had. This woman put her life on the line to come and reach out to Jesus, and Jairus is told, this is all you need, just this. So Jairus' daughter's life is hanging in the balance whether he can put down the importance of his station and the reputation that he's held. To be fair, he's already laid it down for her because he's come to Jesus, and that is risky. If he wants her to live, he has to have the humility to learn from this woman what it is to have faith. That's all I wanted to get here to today. So 3 things have come out of this. Firstly, that the poor are all around us and we overlook them all the time. Thanks, Marjorie. Secondly, that when the woman touch Jesus, he didn't put her on the spot, but rather he listened to her. And thirdly, if we want to know what it is to have faith, we need to listen to the poor. We need to listen to the marginalised. This is why it's so valuable for us to do the justice work that we talk about, because we have people among us who can tell us what it is to have faith. When we live our life in connection with those who are disconnected from society, we hear the words of God. We run into Jesus all the time. This is where you will find God, when you care for the poor. Jesus doesn't hate rich people. Jesus just hates how disconnected we are from necessity of faith. The necessity of faith for this woman was life or death. The necessity of faith for Jairus is death or death. There's a lot more in the story, but suffice it to say that Jesus heals the girl who is 12, and I propose at the end that this little girl stands for us as a type of the new church. The 12 talking about disciples. That's why the 3 disciples, the core group of disciples, had to go in to witness her being raised from the dead, because this little community that is hearing this story again from Jesus' time is facing the possibility, the very real possibility, they'll be squashed by the persecution that they're under. Remember the things we talked about last week? Those images are still here. He crossed over to the other side. Remember that? Jesus going from the safety of a community of faith into the wilds, to among the Gentiles, to the space that is across the chaos and into the unknown. Anytime you go across the other side in Mark's Gospel, you're going to a place where you will see faith acted out. And we see it here. And so these disciples are witnesses of the rising of the new community of God, the one that is based on the faith of the poor, that acknowledges the need to listen and recognises that hearing the story is a powerful way for faith to grow.